Welcome to the Boomers, Bucks, and Bling podcast, where we turn retirement planning into a bit of a thrill ride. I'm your host, Carl Speri, and each week we'll dive into everything from reverse mortgages and staying put in style to Medicare, Social Security, and home safety. But wait, there's more. We're not just going to talk all about money and business. We're going to add some sparkle, some bling, as we chat with travel pros, party planners, and a lot of different topics that's going to help you make the most of your golden years. So grab a cup of tea or whatever it is you want to drink, get comfy, and let's make retirement planning an adventure of a lifetime.
Hi, this is Carl Speri with Boomers, Bucks, and Bling. I want to welcome Brandon Spann. He's been a guest before, and he's here today to talk about ADUs and that type of idea, I guess, on your property that you already own. Brandon, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Lars?
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Thanks for having me back. Lars Remodeling and Design. We're a local San Diego company. We've been doing this since 1991, and we're a full-service design build company, which makes us responsible for designing projects, understanding what the limitations are with building departments, specifically when it comes to ADUs, because there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of good information and there's a lot of misinformation out there, and we're responsible for building it as well. And as we talked the last time we were together, is I think what makes us unique in the sense that being as full service as we can, we also sell and distribute appliances and plumbing fixtures to not only our clients but also to general public.
That's great. Well, thanks. Why don't we start this? This is more of, I think it's going to be more of a conversation between you and I. We're going to kind of talk. I'm the mortgage guy, or I'm the finance guy. Numbers make sense, and you're a design and contractor type of mindset. And sometimes the two have to collide for the benefit, right? So maybe we'll take a little bit different format to it. Who knows where this goes? But okay. So why don't you describe what an ADU is? It's an initial.
Yeah.
What if I don't know what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you hear ADU. What's ADU? ADU stands for Accessory Dwelling Unit. So it's an accessory to your main residence. It used to be like granny flat, mother-in-law quarters, those sort of things. It's kind of developed over the years to be more than just that. So it is an accessory dwelling unit that you're adding the ability of putting on. Basically, it's another single family residence in a sense on your property.
So what if I don't know whether I'm allowed to have an ADU on my property? I mean, I would assume there's ordinances and zoning and things like that I have to worry about.
That's exactly right, and that zoning restriction that you have is different, really throughout the county. There's all different building departments. There's not just one building department. There's City of San Diego. There's the county, of course. There's Lemon Grove, National City, Solana Beach, Del Mar. They all have the requirements from the state, and then they can actually add additional requirements on it. They can't make it easier. They can make it a little bit more difficult. So it all just depends on what part of the county that you do live in. But getting an understanding, you can either talk to really any professional or contact your building department, and they'll let you know what you are able to do.
It's my understanding from the passage of Senate Bill 9 that they are easier to do than they may have been in the past. Is that a true understanding?
It really is, and it's always interesting of how the government works. I think they kind of the pendulum, right? It's one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
So they used to be extremely difficult, very, very, very difficult. Whether it was what zone you lived in, what your setbacks were, parking restrictions, those sort of things, and they have really opened up the floodgates with these ADUs of. If you're within a certain, every building department's different, but if you're well within mass transit, they waive the parking requirements, those setbacks that most homes have setbacks of being away from your neighbor by 4 or 5 feet on each side of your home, maybe 13 to 15 feet in the back. And then the front is usually about the same. but they've waived a lot of those restrictions as well, which is allowing homeowners to put these ADUs literally inside their setback, which I would say is good for the homeowner, sometimes not good for the neighbor. But I think what we're going to see is, as time continues to progress and as people are taking advantage of these kind of looser restrictions, that pendulum is going to swing back the other way, because we're already starting to get a lot of pushback because of parking, right? So when people put in these ADUs, that means more cars are coming. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be taking advantage of our mass transit. So we're seeing that a little bit more and more.
How big is an ADU?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't believe that, to my knowledge, there's a minimum size. There's a maximum, I'll just kind of blanket statement of 1,200 square feet, but it depends on if you're attaching it to the house or it being detached from the home. There are certain restrictions of how much you can actually build on your property, from the floor area ratio, the lot coverage, what the existing house size is right now will all dictate how much space you're able to add with the ADU.
Okay, so you're a builder and you know what 1,200 square feet looks like. I'm a lender. What's 1,200 square? I mean, maybe if I live in a 1,200 square foot home, I can draw a parallel, but I would assume the design is going to be different. And so what is like a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, a kitchen, and a family room? Well, what is that normally around?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I'd say a 2-bedroom, 1 bath is, as your question is that I'd say you could probably accomplish that about that 1,000 square feet. It's all going to really be dictated on how big of a bedrooms you're looking for, right?
Well, we want the bedrooms large enough to be able to have the wider hallways and the walk-in showers and the lower countertops and that kind of thing. So, right, it would have to be built right.
I think it just depends on what the purpose of the ADU is, right? Because we're getting some homeowners that are building these ADUs to bring family in. We're getting some homeowners that are doing these ADUs for revenue. We're getting some homeowners building it for being guest quarters. It's all different. So, but as a blanket statement of what would a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, I'd say for a nice sized bedrooms, probably 12 by 12s, maybe 12 by 13s, bedrooms, and then the bathroom. We all have seen those little 5 by 9 small little bathrooms, which is a little 36-inch vanity, the toilet, and then the tub shower. That would probably be pretty standard in that scenario. Or if you're wanting to go a little bit larger, or maybe even add a 3rd bedroom, compromise on the size of the other bedrooms, you could probably squeeze in 3 bedrooms, maybe 2 baths in that 1,200 square feet, and still have a kitchen and living room.
It'd be relatively comfortable. It'd be doable as either as a rental or as a move-in.
Absolute 100%. I personally will be putting on an ADU at my home for multiple reasons. But long term is where my wife and I will eventually move into, and actually probably rent out our house while we're bouncing around the country doing other things. But yeah, it's all dependent on what the use is, your long terms, and that's how we would design around that.
So you bring up a good point. So I like the term multi-generational housing. And I feel that as things get more and more expensive in Southern California and San Diego, but pretty much across the country, it's getting harder and harder for first-time home buyers to kind of get a leg up. And maybe a multi-generational situation would come up where the children live in the ADU helping the parents. Have you done anything like that? I know you mentioned you might do it, but.
Yeah, no, and that's probably the majority of the projects when it comes to an ADU that we're doing is for that multi-generation, whether it was mom and dad's house and they're now going to accommodate one of their kids and family or whatever that scenario may be, or the other way around where it's the kid's house and they're bringing in mom and dad. And we all want our personal space. I mean, we love our families to death. However, it's nice to have that little bit of separation. But I would say by far the majority of the time that we're putting ADUs on someone's home, it is for that multi-generation living, which seems to make sense. As you pointed out, I mean, San Diego is only getting more expensive, and it's not easy, especially as a first-time home buyer, where this is one of those things that I think really helps homeowners today, but then also helps them in the future as well.
So an ADU can either be connected to the existing home or it can be a separate, depending on lot size and that kind of thing. Any way that is more favorable? Have you seen any kind of, I would assume being separate from the main home would be the most favorable, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it goes back to what you're utilizing it for, and then the lot, as you pointed out, that if you're utilizing it for that kind of generational living, I think you could probably argue either way, depending on what your property is. My mind is actually not too far from the world that you live in. I look at it from a financial side of things. It's definitely more inexpensive to have it attached to the house than it is detached. And the reason for that is that you have to look at how are you getting the electric there? How are you getting the gas there? How are you getting the sewer line? How are you getting all of the infrastructure of the home, the main residence, to accommodate the ADU? There are some situations that's not true, but just the vast majority of the time, it is typically less expensive to add on that ADU to the existing home. And in some scenarios that you can even steal from Peter, I always say to pay Paul, there might be a bedroom or space downstairs that you just don't utilize very much, that space could be used for that ADU, along with adding additional square footage. So you might think, oh, I need 1,200 square feet, but you're really only building 800 square feet because you have 400 square feet of X in your existing home that you could utilize and just give it to the ADU instead of your main residence. But those are the things that we're always looking at, is how we're going to get the power, the gas, the sewer are always big cost drivers when we're looking at building an ADU for somebody.
Okay, so I'm a baby boomer. I've lived in my home for 25 years. I got a pretty good property tax rate.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to build an ADU. What's that going to do to my taxes?
Yeah, I think
know
that's
you're not a tax person, by the way. We'll both put our disclaimers out here, right?
Yeah, totally, exactly.
Tax people, right?
Yeah, fair enough. I think that was a smart call, because I definitely am not. But yeah, so you actually keep your tax base the way that it is right now, and then when we pull the permit, or when your builder pulls the permit, your architect pulls the permit, your building department is actually going to put together what they call a valuation. I think a lot of homeowners always hear evaluation. It's a valuation, so they're putting a value to what you're adding, and that is where you're going to get, based off of the supplemental, you'll get taxed on that supplemental assessment, and the actual cost to build it, and then the valuation are quite a bit different. So that's where you're looking at, from a tax perspective, it's always going to be more cost effective just to remodel your existing home than, like you said, you've been in your house for 25 years, leave, go find something else, which we all know, especially in San Diego, I have yet to find a home that you can move into that's ready, right? So whether it's your house or that future home, you're gonna see your contractor no matter what.
Mm-hmm. And of course, in my world, we can use the reverse mortgage as a vehicle to kind of get that all built. So
absolutely,
a whole different podcast, but we'll talk about it eventually. So
absolutely.
Any kind of recent success stories you have, or where you went in and kind of saved the day for either a multi-generational or income need? I mean, you don't have to move family in, right? You can move into the small ADU you just built and rent out the big house. You can stay in the big house and rent out the ADU. It's a way to create income in retirement as well. Any kind of like, wow, this was really cool, we were involved.
Yeah, I would say the last one was up in Encinitas, kind of a sad story of their previous contractor went out of business, took all their money, and before the project had even started, they were just about to get the permit on. So this was a homeowner whose daughter, husband, and son were going to move in with the mom and dad. And the dad has some health issues, and the whole idea is that she was going to move in with her family to help her mom take care of her dad. So we were able to kind of help redesign the project because we didn't feel that they were taking just the idea of the ADU was there, but it's also the aging in place element, which is actually the last time we were together, ironically.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole idea there is not just thinking about today, but also let's think about tomorrow. So when this particular homeowner, I'm trying so hard not to say their names because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to or
Please
not.
don't.
But the whole idea there is that I'm 48, and so was the daughter, and the idea is live in with mom and dad, and then obviously life is going to happen and they're eventually going to pass, was for them to move into that ADU once their son is obviously out of house. And it kind of that circle of life right there, that their son would move in with his family and kind of do that. So it became kind of a long-term family. I don't want to call it a compound, but
Plan anyway, right?
yeah, a plan. Yeah, exactly. I would say that's probably the one that first came to mind. I mean, we've had another situation where we built the ADU for this. In this case, it was the reverse. They were bringing their parents in to their home, and this was detached. And the idea there is mom's moving into the property, nice sized property in El Cajon, but she was there to help take care of the kids while they are
That is
in
such
their.
a big thing in this economy, isn't it? You get
Oh,
quote free daycare, whatever you want to call it. Go
right.
ahead.
Well, it's a win-win, right? I think I know that the grandmother that was moving into this detached ADU, she was tickled pink because now she gets to see her grandkids literally every day and watch them
Yeah.
grow up. And obviously, as we were just saying, that the parents are reaping the benefits because they're not paying for this daycare. And I mean, who's better to watch your kids than your family? So it really is. It's a win-win situation. And my kids are grown now, so in fact, my youngest, it's his birthday today. He's 18 today. But I have no idea what the cost of daycare is. I have to only imagine that it's probably 3 times what I was paying when they were little ones, and that was pretty expensive back then.
Yeah. Well, I know the cost of going into facilities if you're a senior, and the live-in facilities. I mean, it's astonishing when you see the numbers. I mean, we're talking $8,000 to $15,000 a month to live in some of these places, and I mean, there's one here down the street from my office in La Jolla that I won't talk about, but I mean, it's pretty substantial. So when you think about the investment into your home and the generational aspects of passing on your home or your estate, and what moving into an assisted living facility can do, I mean, there's some serious math there to consider.
It really is, and we literally just are on the tail end of that exact scenario. And what we never understood about that is we always thought, okay, assisted living, and we looked at the cost. Well, my wife's aunt needed to go into assisted living, and I had no idea there were even different levels of assisted living, and she needed 24-hour care. So what we thought, oh, this is going to be $7,000. We ended up having to put her into a facility that was $12,000 a month. And I mean, that's just not one of those things that you think about of, oh my gosh, how do you prepare for that? And it was surprising for all of us that we had no idea. I mean, obviously this isn't something that we're in that market every day, and you don't know what you don't know until you need to know it. And we had a crash course for sure.
Exactly. And to me, that's the benefit of doing the planning. When my clients come into the office, we talk about, okay, we'll help you purchase, we'll help you refinance, we'll get your, whatever. But what's the plan? Why are we doing this? There's more than just the immediate. And it's kind of the same thing with you guys, right? When somebody comes in your showroom and says, I want to blow up my kitchen and start over, it's great, but what's the plan for your life? What's the plan for your house?
Yes.
And I think that is just so important in these conversations.
Yes. Yeah, we talk about the core, like what's the core reason, not only today, but are we thinking about the future as well? I think it's a natural tendency for a lot of people just to think about what are my needs right now? It's like, I don't like my kitchen. Let's blow up my kitchen. Okay, well, fair enough. We can do that. So yes, we need to accommodate the aesthetic or maybe the layout, but let's talk about is this a forever home? Is this a 2-year plan, a 5-year plan? And if it's a forever home, well, then let's think about how we're going to utilize this space, not just today, but in the future as well. So you're not forced to go through a kitchen remodel or any type of remodel twice, one because of cost, but just as important, I would say, because of just the inconvenience of having me or anybody in your home for an extended period of time, right?
Yeah. Well, Brandon, thank you very much. This was very, very helpful. I think our audience is going to really appreciate the information that we talked about here. And I can't thank you enough for being part of these podcasts. And again, have a great day, okay? Thanks.
I appreciate it, Carl. Thanks for the time.
The content of this podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It does not constitute financial, legal, or professional advice. You should not rely solely on the information presented here to make any decisions. We recommend seeking the guidance of a qualified professional for any specific situation. Bark Latex Financial Services, LLC, NMLS number 2143. Its hosts and guests cannot be held liable for any losses, damages, or other negative consequences arising from your use of the information presented in this podcast. For license information, visit www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. Equal housing opportunity.